Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa.
All right, hello again, everybody. I'm Gary Harris. This is Tider Insider TV, brought to you, as mentioned, by Visit Tuscaloosa, visittuscaloosa.com, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. Well, after 2 games, there are 3 record possibilities. It's pretty simple. You're either 0-2, 1-1, or 2-0. And Bama is 2-0, which is the recommended record. But getting there wasn't easy at all. The Crimson Tide pulled away in the fourth quarter, actually late in the fourth quarter, really, to put this thing away Saturday night at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium, beating USF 42-16. Alabama's defense held up well early when South Florida, quite frankly, was outplaying Alabama. And now they had a couple guys running wide open in the secondary. The quarterback missed them, but Alabama had miscues. I mean, I don't know what else to say. 120 yards in penalties, 130, something like that. They had turnovers. They had mental errors. They just could not get going. In fact, when it was 14-6 in the second quarter, Milroe busted off 75-yard touchdown run, brought back by a holding penalty. That would have made it 21-6. Game probably would have been over. But at the end of the day, it was a fourth quarter game. In fact, Alabama had to outscore South Florida 28-3 in the fourth quarter to get that final margin of victory. Rodney, let me bring you in. There was some good. Clearly, the way they finished the game, you talk about finishing, but the fact that they had to finish against this team for the second year in a row in the fourth quarter to win is a little bit troubling.
You know what? There's something about playing South Florida, apparently, that does not necessarily bring out the best in Alabama. You remember last year, they pulled away. Alabama did late. They scored a couple of touchdowns to win that one 17-3. This game had a lot of the similarities to that game. Of course, the weather was better. But, South Florida came. They played really, really well. And look, Gary, I know a lot of people are talking about, it wasn't pretty. And it wasn't. Let's be honest. It really wasn't. But at the same time, there's a lot of reasons for that. I know that we're going to get into some of those. The offensive line, the shuffling that went on there. I don't know that yet the number one offensive line has played together for a single snap. Caden Proctor has not been out there at left tackle. They've had some shuffling. I think that led to a lot of issues offensively.
Well, let's talk more about the offensive line because, as you said, whether people want to hear it or not, you're really without 2 players because with Proctor out and Pritchett banged up with an ankle, you move Booker out to left tackle. That forces Vandermark to play guard, and it is makeshift. And another thing, too, going forward, you hope that Proctor can play on Saturday because he has a game under his belt before Georgia comes in here because he didn't go through spring. He hadn't played since last year. So this offensive line, not only a concern in that game, but I think it's a concern going forward.
I definitely do. I think, again, when you talk about where we are right now, we were really positive. And look, they're 2-0, so we're not trying to be negative, certainly. But I think, Gary, when you look at it, you're heading into the 3rd game of the season. Your offensive line is still, you have to say, unsettled right now.
120 yards in penalties on the stat sheet. But like we just said, we had a 75-yard touchdown run call back, another long touchdown run call back, right at close to 200 yards in actual penalty yardage. It's hard when you turn it over 3 times, the other team doesn't turn it over at all, and you have that many penalties and that much yardage, you just should be fortunate to win the game. So I think at least you won the game.
You're right. You had 2 touchdowns called back. You mentioned that. You have a long kickoff return. Kendrick Law got away from him there with the fumble that, really started the second half off on a bad note. But you got the ball down there at the goal line and you fumble a direct snap. So a lot of things to work on.
Let's get to a positive. And I do think overall the defense was a positive. When you consider they ran 82 plays and you hold them to 309 yards, that's not bad yards per play. And you only held them, you held them to 1 touchdown. The rest of the time, they kicked field goals. So, they gave up some yards. They ran a lot of plays, didn't get the turnovers, which is a big part of the identity of this defense. But all in all, 16 points, 309 total yards. I think you take that most games.
Yeah, I would say this, Gary. The one thing is they had quarterback run issues covered.
Yeah, they did.
Byron Brand.
Well, he's a load.
He is a load. But I do think, they went for over 200 yards rushing. That's something that's, it's a little bit shaky there. But at the same time, I thought the pass defense played pretty well for the most part. Now, with that said, We know about there was some times when South Florida had some receivers running past the corners early in the game. I know Deontay Lawson lost a guy on a wheel route one time that the ball was overthrown. You complete those throws, if it's Tennessee throwing that ball,
which is the same offense. They run the same offense with Alex Golesh at South Florida. It's the Tennessee offense. They won't miss those throws, that's for sure. All right, speaking of the defense, one of the highlights was Justin Jefferson. When you talk about a guy that was getting after the football, but unfortunately there was a play in the game where he was called for targeting. You're going to see it here on your screen. He hit the USF quarterback Byron Brown as the QB scrambled into a slide. We'll hear from Coach in a moment here in regard, and we'll get into statistically, but this was unfortunate. He squared the guy up. The quarterback ducked his head. No flag was thrown, but they went to the review. Now, not only did he miss the rest of this game, he's going to miss the first half at Wisconsin, and this is a key guy on your defense. Yeah,
the rule is what it is in terms of the ejection, having to sit out the next half. It's really hard. It's really difficult. Some targeting, we see it. We say, hey, look, that's pretty blatant. Some of this is such a bang, bang play. It's football. Guys duck heads, running backs, quarterbacks, they duck heads, and then all of a sudden the defensive player's in a bad position when he hits him. This is a rule that I think they really have to reevaluate, Gary. I think they have to reevaluate how they penalize a player in this situation.
It's one thing if you're launching with the purpose of spearing or using your headgear. This was not that. All right, let's hear from Coach in our Coach Talk segment. Justin Jefferson, as we mentioned, ejected in the fourth quarter of the game versus USF, and he will miss the first half of this weekend's game at Wisconsin. Here's what Coach DeBoer had to say about the penalty and the situation with Justin Jefferson.
He's into it. He's into it not just, individually. He's a guy that's becoming a strong leader in our football team and the energy he brings every day. I just love having him in this program. He's involved in special teams, and so, not having him out there in the first half will be tougher.
Also, we're going to watch some of the linebackers here. Kane Womack was asked about it yesterday too, and he said, "What did you tell Justin Jefferson?" He said, "I told him to keep playing hard. It is what it is." And that's kind of what we're talking about, Rodney. And to tell you how effective he was in on 20 plays. He had 10 tackles on those 20 plays. They ran 82 plays. Imagine, at that rate, if he had run, he'd just been in a 40 plays. He had 30 tackles or 50, 25 tackles. The guy was playing great.
Yeah, he really was. Now, here's the thing. All right, so Justin Jefferson is out for targeting. The Mike linebacker for Wisconsin, Jake Chaney, he's out.
Yeah,
he's out for targeting. Of course, Tackett Curtis, who stepped in for him, had a really big game. Stepped in really well. But, both teams going to be missing linebackers in that first half.
Yeah, for both these teams, I guess the good news is both those guys are going to come out in the third quarter ready to go, biting at the bit. So Justin Jefferson's going to be hungry, and so will the guy for Wisconsin as well. All right, big game for a lot of reasons. One of the biggest reasons was that the dedication of Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium was held on Saturday afternoon. They had a ceremony in front of the stadium at the Walk of Champions, and then that night they also had a ceremony as well as the playing surface, the turf, was officially recognized as Saban Field. The $1 Million Band performance was moving in formation to spell out the name Saban. It looked great from the aerial shots. Coach spoke to the 100,000 people there in attendance, and of course you saw the signage. Part of what Nick Saban told the crowd on Saturday night, quote, "You brought me the greatest memories any man could have." Boy, this was a first-class ceremony. Like I said, it really lasted, most of the day.
Yeah, it really did. And, Gary, as I'm standing there watching it from the press box, I don't know what was running through your mind, but I'm thinking, where did the last 17 years go?
Yeah.
I remember when he came for he had his introductory press conference. Really doesn't seem like that long ago. But, yeah, it's a great event.
Pre-game, halftime, see Coach there, and really post-game, it was still a big part of the discussion. He's a legend, and it's so cool that unlike Coach Bryant, who passed away, basically a month after, he retired, Coach Saban is here to enjoy all this. Coach Bryant didn't get to do that.
Yeah. And I think too, with Coach Saban here, a lot of people ask, Gary, how involved is he?
Yeah.
How involved is he in the program? And again, This is Kalen DeBoer's program now. I don't think Nick Saban, people say, well, we saw the shots of him on the sideline. He's watching the game. You know, he wants
Alabama to win.
He's always going to be intense.
He wants Alabama to win.
Yeah,
he's here if Coach needs him. But the torch has been passed. Well, still to come on Tider Insider TV, what should Alabama expect from its trip to Camp Randall Stadium? Hopefully Alabama will be the players jumping around at the end of the game. A former Big Ten player now with the Crimson Tide weighs in on the Wisconsin experience. And Alabama basketball scores its first commitment for its 2025 recruiting class. Find out more about Amari Allen. Obviously, he's talented, or Alabama wouldn't be offering. We'll have the latest. And we'll be getting your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, that phone number, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV.
I think there's 2 or 3 other guys that might have been there. A couple staff members have been there. So, you know, they're going to bring their best. You know, they're going to fill it up. They've been looking forward to this game for quite some time, just like everybody does. Everyone wants to knock off the top dog, and that's us right now. So I'm really excited to get back and, you know, be in an away environment.
Alabama tight end CJ Dippre has been there before to Camp Randall as a member of the Maryland Terrapins. Welcome back into TI TV. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Alabama getting ready to travel for their first their first road game of the season. It's a big non-conference game. Their biggest road trip since 2022 at Texas, 870 miles to Madison, Wisconsin. Of course, they'll fly up there on Friday. And, Rodney, this isn't just a road game. This is another one of those dynamic atmospheres. House of Pain, Jump Around is, you know, the song they play in the fourth quarter there. The whole stadium gets up. You'd like them to be sitting down by then and only getting up to dance to the song. But for Alabama to quiet this team, Rodney, what are they going to need to do? Now, listen, they haven't been very impressive in their first 2 games. Let's be honest with you. Against Western Michigan and against was it South Dakota?
Yeah.
They only scored 28 points in both of those games, but you know they're going to be tough on defense. You know they're big. You know they're physical. You know they're well coached by Luke Fickell, and you know they're going to be physical and ready to play.
Hey, he is Luke Fickell.
That's right.
Listen, you know, Gary, I'm with you. Mad City. I mean, it's an incredible atmosphere. You're going up there a long way from home, like you said, unfamiliar territory. 11 a.m. kickoff. Now, with Alabama having these morning practices, maybe that alleviates a little bit of that, but. You know, I think when you look at Wisconsin, you mentioned they haven't played well in their first 2 games. You almost wonder how much have they been preparing for Alabama over the last several weeks? Maybe that's part of it. You know, they've got a really good transfer quarterback, Tyler Van Dyke. He's got really talented. He can throw the football. Now, he's had a penchant in the past for throwing interceptions. He's only thrown for 400 yards total in these first 2 games. He's got 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He's got a couple of really good receivers, Will Pauling, Bryson Green's a really outstanding player. They like to run the football, as you know, Gary. They've had some injuries at running back, but they've got several of them that they like to mix in. So I think they're good there. I think the one thing, you said, what does Alabama have to do? I think run the football. That's really how you go on the road and take the crowd out of it. And you look at Wisconsin, that's probably not been their strength right now. I think they lost a defensive lineman for the year. It's not really been their strength so far. Now, you look at their secondary, been really strong in the secondary. So I think Alabama now, they're going to have an opportunity to go up there with Jam Miller, Justice Haynes, Jalen Milroe, and run the football. Yeah,
and as you said, Jake Chaney, who is their signal caller on defense, he'll be out in the first half there. Coach Hitchner for Alabama, having been on that staff last year, how big a help is that? Well, I think any time you have somebody with familiarity can certainly lend a lot. I mean, he knows the talent. He knows the players they have defensively, certainly probably to some extent. He's very familiar with what they do offensively. And he knows Fickell really, really well. Was with him at Cincinnati. So I think, you know, certainly there is something there that he can be helpful. Real quickly, let's go ahead and take a look at the jump around video, because this is what they're known for, man. This is a magic moment, kind of like Dixieland Delight at Alabama. Third time these 2 teams have met. They split the first 2 meetings. Wisconsin looking for a win over a top 5 opponent for the first time since 2020. This is a Alabama point spread right now, 15.5. Bama's a big favorite. You know, Wisconsin doesn't get penalized much. 3.5 a game. Alabama averaging 10 penalties a game, which is 125th in the country. Wisconsin is in the top 10 in terms of not having penalties, so that's an advantage. But this is what they're known for. Again, they're going to do this regardless, but you sure hope by the time they're doing it, Rodney, that Alabama's got the game in control.
Maybe they empty out the stadium early.
Yeah, and maybe it'll be walk around instead of jump around. Let's get to basketball. Alabama gets its first commit for the 2025 cycle. He's a good one. Four-star combo, guard, small forward, wing player, however you want to call Amari Allen. And interesting enough, he's out of Wisconsin. He's from Green Bay. Schwaben in high school. Rodney, really good prospect. Swing guy, as I mentioned. He picked the Tide over Wisconsin, Minnesota, UCF, Mississippi State, and Nevada.
You know, Drew DeArmond, who does he's a good friend of both of ours, but does my basketball recruiting stuff really high. Drew's really high on this kid, thinks he's got a lot of skills. So talked to Drew today about him. He was excited.
Yeah, he's a modern-day player. Can play a lot of different positions, can guard, can shoot the three, just exactly what fits in at Alabama. All right, still to come on TITV, find out which former Alabama stars stood out in week 1 of Bama in the NFL. We'll have it for you. And we'll be getting your phone calls, your emails, and your tweets. Again, that phone number, as always, 205-348-9882. Let us hear from you, Tider Insider Nation. We'll be right back after this. Week 1 of Bama in the NFL. Tons of Crimson Tide players in the league. Derrick Henry, first game of the Ravens. He didn't have his best game, but he did have that early touchdown. In fact, it was the first touchdown of the NFL season. And the Chiefs, though, got the win 27-20. Dallas Turner making an impact. This is what he does. He gets after the quarterback. That's why he's going to make a lot of money in the league. Former Alabama receiver Jameson Williams had his best game of his career for the Lions. 134 yards in receptions and a big touchdown as Detroit beat the Rams. You don't see him there, but Tua had a big game. Others had big games for Alabama in the NFL. And welcome back into TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Time to take phone calls, and Putty is going to lead us off over there in Alabaster. Putty?
Hey, Rodney. Hey, Gary.
Hey, Putty.
Hope y'all are good.
Yes, sir.
Roll Tide. So I watched the defensive ends or the outside linebackers most of the game, and they crashed in a lot. And I played defensive end back in the day, and so I know we lost containment. But what I didn't know is that a planned thing that they're supposed to crash in?
Yeah, I would think so. In that circumstance, are you talking about when the quarterback got the corner a couple of times?
I think he's gone.
Yeah. Defensively, Gary, they're going to approach things differently on variety of plays, whatever it might be. And I don't know which plays he's referring to specifically.
All right. But, yeah, I think that they want to be aggressive. And, again, every game against every team, the game plan can be different. But they did have problems stopping the quarterback run, as you talked about earlier in the show. All right, let's get to our email question of the day. It's brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. When it comes to heating and air conditioning, KDM Service Corporation serves your family like our family. All right, let's take a look at what we've got for the email question of the day. And it is from Kendall in Bremen, Alabama. Can you tell me why Keon Keeley is not playing? Thank you. He's still young. He's kind of changed positions, Rodney. I know they like his talent and ability. It may be a case where he's just not ready yet.
Yeah, I think, again, he was a high school linebacker. He came here projected as a jack linebacker. That's where he was initially. Then he redshirted last season. And now here he is. He had to get bigger, and he's gotten bigger. He's listed at 277, Gary. He's 6'5", 6'6". Guy got great height. Now, I just think it's a matter of him filling out because, look, when you look at his long-term potential, where it is, if he goes to the NFL, he's going to be an end. He's going to be a down guy. And I think long-term, this is the best move for him.
All right, still to come on TITV, we'll check in on Alabama men's golf looking strong in a tournament. And also, more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. And again, phone lines are open right now, which is rare this time of the year when it's football season. But they're open right now if you want to give us a call. 205-348-WVUA. 348-9882 is the number. We'll be right back with more of your phone calls and emails right after this. Alabama golf will take a one-stroke lead into Wednesday, the final day of the Folds of Honor Collegiate Tournament in Grand Haven, Michigan. The Tide's Dominic Clemens and Jonathan Grizz were brilliant. Finished a combined 8 under par on Tuesday. Alabama as a team shoots 5 under par and leads ninth-ranked Illinois by one stroke. Fans can watch the final round of the Folds of Honor tomorrow morning on the Golf Channel, beginning at 8:30 a.m. I think that's pretty cool. Roll Tide. All right, welcome back in. And we got a phone call. Luke in Clay County. All right, Luke, hey, good evening. You're on TITV. Hey, Luke. Luke, you would? Go ahead, Luke. You're on.
Yeah, I was just love y'all's show and Roll Tide. One thing I didn't know if Alabama was in on any commits to other schools that might be looking to flip to Alabama.
Okay, Luke. Yeah, they're going to continue to recruit a lot of guys that are committed to other schools, just like teams are committing. Recruiting Alabama commits. So anybody pop to mind? I know there's a couple big uncommitted guys they're looking at, but where's that stand?
There's some defensive linemen committed to other schools, some that's committed to Florida. I think, too, Alabama had a player flip, Derek Smith from Selma Southside, and he's the guy that flipped to Auburn. And, I know Alabama would love to have him back. I think a lot of times, too, Gary, we've seen this through the years. As the season goes on, players have second thoughts. They jump ship. They go to another team. Yeah,
they'll continue to be recruiting them. All right, quick email question. Why didn't Coach DeBoer bring in Ty Simpson against USF? That's from Mac in Brookwood. Well, Mac, because Jalen Milroe's the quarterback, and it was a close game. Listen, I think most of us really like Ty Simpson's ability. But in a close game that you're trying to win, more times than not, coaches are going to stay with their starting quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it's a one-point game in the fourth quarter. You don't make a quarterback change right there.
All right, prediction time. What we think about Alabama, Wisconsin. We'll have that for you next when we come back to wrap up this TITV edition on this Wisconsin game week. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to TITV. Game prediction time. Rodney, you lead us off.
Well, look, Alabama's first road game in the Kalen DeBoer era. It's a really good Wisconsin team, a well-coached Wisconsin team. You got to go up there in a difficult environment. I think Alabama really needs to gain control tempo-wise early. I just think Alabama has too many athletes, Gary. I've got Alabama 31-13.
I'm right there with you, Rod. And, as we come to me for my prediction, I also think that Alabama's got too many athletes. And I'm actually encouraged. When you play as sloppy as they did with turnovers and mistakes and penalties and still win, whether you like it or not, the final score was 42-16. I think Alabama wins. I think they win it fairly comfortably. Got a lot of respect for Wisconsin. Very similar to your score. I like Alabama 35-14 in this one Saturday morning at Camp Randall Stadium. A reminder, great coverage all week coming up on WVUA 23. Also, our website, WVUA23.com. We got great coverage on our website. Also, download our app. And that's going to do it for the show. It's been presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. We're going to leave you with video from the Nick Saban dedication, the afternoon part of it, outside the stadium. Reminder, a replay tonight at 10:30 on WVUA 23, or catch us anytime at WVUA23.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Good night, everybody.